Hi, everyone. So excited to be here, especially with my great guest today. So honored to have Kelle back. Kelle's been with me, and I've been with her for a year and a half almost. It's been an incredible ride from where we started to where we are, and more importantly, where we're going. Jason, who you're getting more familiar with all the time, is really just a wonderful resource for everything he focuses on. And I can attest that both Jason and Kelle are go givers and they understand the benefit of giving and helping others in order for that to really circulate in the universe. Too many people are, I give something, I get something. They're too transactional, they're too short term, and they're too small minded. So if you just take the opposite approach and have faith and belief that good things will come with good thoughts and actions. With that said, chat's wide open. We depend on chat to make us as relevant as we can, direct us in ways that we can provide some wonderful takeaways for you to justify your time and interest today. With that, I'll swing it over to Kelle. Kelle can give you an update. Today's word is empowerment. And that's such an important word, especially in the areas that we're most focused on. So, Kelle, welcome again.
Well, thank you. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're tuning in from. Empowerment. I mean, am I the only one that thought of Beverly right away? I couldn't help it. That's like attached to her Tuesdays. But what a great word and what a great gift to give someone is, giving them the authority to do something. And it's hard for me to also immediately not think about it in a leadership aspect. As a leader, to empower your team to be the best they can be. I just had a conversation this week about this actually, about leaders surrounding themselves with B and C level people because they want yes people around them, and how you will never rise to be the best leader if you don't surround yourself with other eagles. And the beauty of that is when you empower your team, they will so far exceed your expectation that you can't even put a figure on it dollar wise. Because it's like community, right? We empower you to be you, and when you feel safe, supported, and all the things, you're apt to take more risk and be more creative. So it allows you to accomplish things that maybe you didn't think you even could, or never even thought of before. So I think this is going to be a fun conversation today, actually.
Well, I'm always sure. And here we are with another good friend of ours, Harvey Tuck. Hi, my lovely friends. Great to be here and love the word for today. Empowerment, listening and nurturing others is empowering. And empowerment, the key word I believe is power. And just like any power source, you can fuel up. You can help other people kind of cap their fuel line in a way and make them strong. But also, it's self-empowerment that wins the day also. So thank you, Harvey. Harvey has his show actually following our Tuesday show here, and it's the franchise show. Harvey started a second season with Simon Weiss on the franchise brand show. So if you have an opportunity, what you see here is what you'll probably see there. And just a great individual. Can't promote Harvey enough because he's so deserving. With that said, thank you, Harvey. Jason, you were just here yesterday. I know you make a great pairing with whoever you're with. Why don't you share your initial thoughts on empowerment and any updates you'd like to share?
Thank you so much. And I figure I'm a guest squared today. So thank you for having me on your show today. I'm a guest of the program and I'm a guest of your show with you and Kelle. And I love to be here with both of you. It's always a great time. And thank you so much. This was a late night edition. Kind of, I got yesterday. I was with my dad and I saw this and I was like, was this from before? And I reached out to you. I'm like, you mean this Thursday, the 23rd? But I'm excited. I'm really happy to be able to do this. And with that said, a reason I mentioned is because I've been thinking about it all night because I saw the word empowerment and I was like, ooh, that's a good one. I'm going to really enjoy getting into this, especially with Dawn and Kelle. You said something a second ago, and I wasn't going to talk about it, but I want to touch on it real quick. So you said power, the word power. And one of my favorite books, when people ask me sometimes, and there's a lot of books that have changed my life and have helped me, change directions. But David Hawkins' Power versus Force was a huge mindset change for me. And power versus force, force is you push it and you shove it and you make it work, kind of what you were talking about. But power comes in from inside. Power comes from knowing what you're doing is right. And about empowerment, kind of the angle I take from empowerment because it was actually even in my mission statement a while back, and I kind of finesse things as I grow, it grows. I don't do anything to anyone. We talked about this yesterday too. And I think empowerment is more about helping somebody take away what's stopping them from being their best self. Because we have it all inside, but we get caught up in, a lot of things, and we have plenty of time to talk, so I don't want to go too much into that. But that's how I see empowerment, is helping someone take away the veil that's keeping them from seeing their greatness.
Yeah, and I think it's community, it's trust, it's friendship, because I think everybody's too much for themselves, right? And until you share who you are, what you are with others, and they share back with you, do you get context? Do you get the proper perspective? Because sometimes you think you're running late and you find out you're way ahead of time. Sometimes you think you're right on top of it and you're falling behind. But unless you have someone like a workout buddy or a workout group that can kind of share where they see you in an honest, giving way. And I think the other element is avoiding judgment. You take your power away when you start becoming jealous or competitive with people who you don't know that well. You don't know what they've gone through. You don't know what they're dealing with. Every day is a new day for whoever you are. Yesterday doesn't continue all the time into tomorrow. Maybe that's a really good thing. And thinking yourself as a powerful person who has great abilities and has impact, that enough gives you that, take the next step, stretch that limit that you've been living under. And I think that's so important. And with that said, we've got Omar, who's an empowering individual on many levels, has the Zoom Party show. And what a great show. He does a lot of tutoring for children or young adults during the week. And, you always have to dig a little deeper to see where the treasure is. Too many people are focused on the superficial, especially the artificial or materialistic end of it. People who don't mature are still buying Corvettes too late in their life, and they got to move on, or they should move on. But, growth is something you have control over, how much you limit yourself, how much you put yourself out there, because it's exposure that really gets you awareness, right? When you're hiding in a corner and you're sitting there with that loop in your head, it's time to move. It's time to get up, and you can always get back, and most times you don't. So Kelle, with what you've said and Jason said, and with our lovely guest, how do you see yourself now in an empowering way as opposed to a year or 2 years ago?
Oh, wow, that's a good one. I will say, well, first of all, I love Unveiled. That's the name of my newsletter, The Unveiled Journey. I think the empowering thing is what I've gotten out of doing live streaming, which I started doing I wanted to live louder in my purpose. I know quite literally being in front of a microphone, but it was for my own mental health. And then it was also to help anyone else. Like how can we help one another? Because there's so much power in our stories. But it's about the empowerment for myself is being present in every moment and not having to worry about what to say. I think part of what corporate America certainly did to me is you have to edit yourself. It didn't matter where I was, if I was in the boardroom with the team, what have you. There was a portion that I generally had to edit. Because there were even times I was in global boardrooms and was literally told, like, you are here to be seen, not heard. And I think breaking through that and just being like, I am who I am. I lie to myself every day by saying, I'll remember that. Um, and having grace with, hey, I can be mid thought and I forget what I was talking about, and embracing it and being like, hey, that happens to all of us. Like, I mean, it happens. And just being you and loving that part of it and giving yourself grace for when you do have that voice that we all have it. Sometimes it's just louder than others, that tells us we're not good enough, or you can't do that. We're all familiar with that to a degree, but being able to silence it and say, hey, heck no, I know I am. I know I'm good enough. I am enough exactly the way that I am, and empowering yourself to be better and to grow. Here's something I haven't said in a long time. Because if growth were easy, we'd all be doing it. It's not fun most of the time. It's rough. But man, when you face it head on and empower yourself to say, you know what, this is gonna suck, but I'm gonna embrace the suck and I'm gonna get through it faster. Because the longer we wait, it doesn't make it go away. It just makes it longer and harder to get through. Um, so that kind of went several directions, but I think ultimately the empowerment is to be myself, and I think that's such a gift to give ourselves, and not worry about what other people think, and because their judgment on you is about them, it has nothing to do with you. Um, and I love this saying, and I can't remember who it is, so I apologize for not quoting the person properly, and maybe one of y'all know it. Is your opinion of me is none of my business. Like, I don't care. And we shouldn't care. And unfortunately, social media is like the place where people self-compare. And it's so sad because to go on to your point, and then I'll Dawn, and I'll turn it over to you, Jason, is you never know what somebody's going through. Just because you see someone killing it and you're like, God, they're doing so great, and they seem to be, how did they do it so much faster than me? Or they're so much better. You have no clue what's gone on behind the scenes. Trust me. So self-comparison is all about you. You don't know someone else's journey. And that's just a fact. And when we stop self-comparing, that is a true gift of empowerment to ourselves. So I'll leave it there this time around.
That's so beautiful, Kelly. So thankful for that. So, Jason, how do you stay focused and not get impacted by things around you or smaller people around you that tend to make you question yourself when it's really a question that should have never come up because of someone else?
That's a great question. Yeah, we all go through what we go through, and we've all been through a lot. And I think to get to the point where we're at, you've had to have gone through. You can't read enough textbooks to have the experience to be able to help people in a certain way. Now, trust me, I love reading and I study and I love knowledge, but I derived a lot of stuff from my experience and what I've gone through. And I have a very strong internal compass. I've always I found that at a very young age. I'm going to share a quick story, and I love the story, but I don't sound as cool as I think I do when I say it, because I was not such a great child, but it speaks to my independence. I was the youngest child, and I just was very fiercely independent. We went to Disneyland. My older brother, my mom, my aunt, my uncle, my niece at the time. I was probably 5 or 6 at the time. I didn't want to do what everyone else wanted to do, so I was out entertaining myself. And my mom ran up crying, "Oh my God, Jason, oh my God." And mom's passed, rest in peace, mom, but love her. But she came running up crying, and she was like, "Oh my God, oh Jason, you were lost, blah, blah, blah." And I was like, I wasn't lost, you were lost. I knew exactly where I was. So I've always had a very strong internal compass. And I tell people, that I've had some of the biggest, baddest, meanest people on the planet in my face yelling at me in the Marine Corps and different places. And you can't phase me. But if I did something that I feel was wrong, I'm really hard on myself. I'm my own tough critic. And so that's what it is. But because of that, I have a very strong internal compass. So and doesn't mean I'm always right in a way, but I do feel very confident in what I've done. And so I'm very settled in that. And that's what's helped me deal with any of the detractors, anything trying to take away from that. And I listen with an open mind. I have curious and flexible mindset. I will listen to what people have to say and their feedback, because it is feedback. But my power comes from inside, and I listen to what I am, and I know what's my true north. And so I'll leave it there for now.
I think that's great. Anytime you can remember a story going back to 5 or 6 years old with family that still is there for you. And those are your old friends, is your memories, your quality memories of your family, of all the wonderful people who made life better for you. And, I think there's still plenty of wonderful people out there who make things wonderful for you. And I know I can talk for Harvey, I can talk for Kelle, is we've been validated by some of the most important, wonderful people in the world who think we're pretty cool. Our shows are pretty cool. I mean, the Bipolar General comes to mind, Bob Burr comes to mind. I know Harvey's dealing with some of the icons and legends of franchising. And it's not because we're competing as a legend. We're not. I don't have that kind of experience, but I know one thing. I know how to facilitate quality conversations for people. I know how to make them feel comfortable and really give them a feeling like, hey, this is worthwhile for me. Where in their life, it's like, well, what am I bringing to the audience next week? It's a one-directional give instead of an interchange or exchange of, hey, I saw this that you might not have noticed. You saw something I might have noticed, but we enjoy being together. And when you're around that many great people who validate you, small people are like insignificant, right? Because that's the circle. Some people are great performers, always appearing in front of not comfortable audiences. And, I learned a long time ago, you can't make anybody do something you can't force them to. And if you do, you're putting out too much energy and probably getting a lot of resistance. So I think having that confidence, and the other rule of thumb I use is give something time to settle. You wouldn't pick up a hot pan right after it came off the burner. And I always tell myself, well, wait till tomorrow. Don't worry too much about it tonight. You just learned about it. Your mind's going crazy. You're trying to get through it too fast. And every day that you have makes it a little bit easier because it settles into a smaller place in your life versus being the headline that you're reading when it first happens. And stuff will happen. It shouldn't surprise you when it does, because, just like those athletes who do the hurdles, they're not just running. They got to get over a hurdle to keep running. And there's always another hurdle in front of them, but they get comfortable with it. And I think the other aspect is measuring success by joy, by happiness, by contentment, however you get there. Because if you're there, you're so much further ahead of the people who never stop, who say, I'm going to make 300 grand next year. And as soon as they do, well, I got to go to 400. Well, why didn't you just enjoy what you went after, settle into it, and then make your next move, and I think that's so important. Carl's here today. Everybody in the group ends up being here most of the time, which is so great because, there's something to an audience and there's something to community, and then it moves to family, right? It's people who really care about each other, who get excited when someone reaches some level of success and they share it with you. And then everybody can be a scout for each other and maybe save a lot of time and interest. But having a group makes you more confident, especially a loving group, a caring group. And that's how you usually start your life, right? You're surrounded by all these bigger people who do so many things for you that you couldn't do for yourself. And you take for granted until you find yourself in that position. So Carl's got a show that precedes my show every Tuesday about successful funding, has a daily newsletter that continues to grow, and just launched a weekly newsletter. And, it's just so fun to see people adding more tools to their toolbox, stretching a little bit, making connections and making connections within connections. So thankful to have Carl with us. What a wonderful guy. And then we have Dennis, who's here pretty much every day. Happily got LinkedIn. Dennis is just another great guy. And I always look at the person first and then everything else second. So if you're an honest, high integrity, quality person, that gets you in the door, right? Doesn't matter what you did, who said something. If you're not that, you're probably not going to be a good fit. So happy to join your great circle, and happiness and learning keeps happening happily. Well, everybody, when you laugh, people laugh with you, and, when you smile, it elicits more smiling. So sometimes you just have to gather that fire and build it and build it for others and with others. So Kelle, we got a lot of great friends here today, old friends, good friends. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, so many great things that you all just said. And Jason, we're so similar. I mean, I'm the youngest too, and samey. Like, I was never lost. It was always someone else. And my mom does say, like, thank God I'm not a child nowadays, because she was like, I would go talk to anybody, which unfortunately you can't do that today. But so many good things there, and so many things that came up as you both were talking. And one, it's always hard not to bring this up, because when things are transactional, people, we all read through that stuff. And I want to say this in a business, because we are talking on LinkedIn, and this is all associated to business, is one of my biggest pet peeves. And anybody who's followed me for any period of time knows I talk about the pitch plan. Not do it. And do not do it in person. Like, we see it and we feel it. I mean, that's the whole part, is people know when you're just trying to make a sale, or you're desperate for a transaction. People feel it. They may not be able to consciously say, oh, hey, Jason just said that in a really, whatever way, and it felt off, because people aren't buying the product or service. They're buying you, period. I mean, and that's it. And I think the other, important thing to remember is the other side of that coin. Guess what? Not everybody's for everybody, and that's okay. Right. Like, it's all right for you to be like, for whatever reason, this just is not jamming for me, or is not jiving. Move on. Do not waste your energy trying to force something to fit if it doesn't fit, because not everything fits, and that's okay. Like, go on your merry way and be around those people. Like you were saying, Don, the small people. I look at that, anyone who's trying to hold you back from your greatness or from you flying, that's not your person. That's not part of your community. People want you to soar and be the best version of yourself. The reason that, Don has always been such a huge supporter of, and I don't know how many shows have come off of this show, truthfully, but there are lots. Nobody is in competition with each other. Everybody's just wants to cheer for each other. Like, that is amazing. Harvey getting his second show and it's doing so great. That's awesome. Like, why would any of us be like, oh gosh, look at Harvey, I can't believe him. We should want everyone to do great. And again, and if you're not around people like that, or if you're around people that you're thinking that you want to pull them down, take a little look in the mirror and empower yourself to have some growth. Because there's nothing better than being around people that are cheering for you. Like, well, I don't want to be around the jeerers. Is that even a word anymore? Jeer. Do people say jeers? But those aren't your people. And quite honestly, when you do have people starting to say bad things, that usually means that you're doing something right. And I will say that as another thing about LinkedIn that I've loved so much is it is not like other platforms, in the sense of, and y'all know who they are, and I'm not even going to say the names of them out loud, that when you do something, people can't wait to say something negative. And it's like, the more negative that it gets, like, the more power it gets, and the more raise it gets, which, man, I think that's so backwards. That at least here, it feels more like you are getting the positive feedback. Because we've been doing this a long time. And I honestly do not think, I think I've had one negative message, but it was truly from a crazy person, I'm pretty sure. a bad person. I will say that. But one out of the thousands upon thousands upon thousands, that's pretty great. So yeah, I think I'll leave it there this time.
Well, I think you make terrific points. We all have been making some terrific points because I think we listen to each other and learn from each other and then can tee off of what someone just said, because there's so many opportunities out there. And, a rule I have always is be very thoughtful about your words, even if you're not aware all the time, and, it was kind of funny, I'm always working on a project or something. And when the kids were born, our first one, I told Ann, I said, you know what? They'll never hear a foul word until they're 18. And for 18 years, I never swore in the house because I never wanted to be a model for that. I don't want someone to say, because my dad does it, I can do it and give people license. But I also know that everybody I come in contact with, I have a choice of words. I could say something positive and empowering, or I can feel like I've got a responsibility to be totally honest. But you can't be totally honest unless you are totally aware, right? And if a stranger comes into your house or comes into your life somehow, why not be courteous? Why not be polite? Why not be complimentary when it's sincere? And, it's recognizing things that people aren't even aware of. If you tell somebody sincerely, I think you've got just a great hat on today. And they might have thought so, but now it's like, wow, someone else thinks so. And now my hat even means more to me. Or just for what you did for that person shows me what a special person you are. And so many people are reserved in superlatives. They're reserved in really giving love that they feel it's embarrassing, right? If I become a little too familiar in a good way, and you don't have those opportunities all the time. Some people come into your life for a day, but they can make a huge difference because they can help you pivot. They can help you maybe take a new route, give you a tip that you've been waiting for. So you never know when that magic's going to happen, but you got to be out there looking for it, being aware of it, and seeing, hey, I hit that right. And when someone leaves you better than they found you, or the vice versa, you feel like you did something worthwhile. Where in most people, hey, how much did I make today? How much did I get today? What else could I get for myself today? And that may work in a singular, remote type situation, but when you really want to learn more, you got to give people safety. You got to give people space. And you got to give people understanding, even if it's like you don't understand it, right? But you got to say, and you can always come back with, hey, that's interesting. You don't have to say that's wrong. I always tell people on the show, you should never say, well, I don't agree with that. Well, who asked you to agree with anything, right? That's not your role. And it's easier to say, well, that's an interesting point. I'd like to add my perspective or add to it or expand on it. Or sometimes the best thing to do is let it go.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's better not to get involved in things that you don't want to be involved in. There was a saying when I was doing turnarounds and restructurings, if you wouldn't buy it, you should sell it. Right? Because if you didn't have it, would you buy it? And if the answer is no, then what are you keeping it for? It had its role. And I think that's where people get cluttered closets, but also have cluttered minds, where they keep bringing stuff in and not making room for good stuff or optimizing or exchanging. So, Jason, I know everything we're talking is somewhat strategic, but it's not serious strategic, because when you're dealing with people, you have to really get down with them, meet them where they're at. And that's so important. So how have you learned to evolve over time with your generosity?
You know, it's funny. I love joining you. I love joining you, Dawn, in all of our configurations, but especially with Kelly, because it's just such a great conversation. And it is with Dave as well, and the people that I've joined as other times. But I say that because like minds, because what I wrote down, what I was going to say feeds right into what your question was. I wrote down, be kind. You know, you talked about, it's not a, you know, there is a strategy for empowering people, and there are coaches to help people empower people, and there are leaders and stuff, and there is that structure. But just simply being kind can help somebody, empower them. And you talked about a compliment. How often have you, and I know this crew I'm here with and the community probably a lot, in the sense of who gives a compliment. Not many people give compliments that much, unless it's directed and it's kind of, you know, you beg the question, so to speak, like you have to, oh, well, this should be complimented. But just someone's hat, or you say something nice. If you've given someone a compliment and I know you've seen them be surprised. At some point in time, you've complimented somebody just being honest and genuine, and they were like, oh, thank you. Because we're not used to that. And that's something that we don't do. And so just by that simple act of kindness and recognizing someone for what they do or what they're, you know, what they've got going on, that carries so much weight. I think that a genuine compliment carries more weight than running them through a textbook. Yes. Because it's honest and sincere, and it hits them in their heart, not just in their head. And that's what we can do. And that's what I found, is that, you know, look for that opportunity to find someone doing something right. You know, whether it's business or in our lives, we so much look for what's wrong in life, you know, the bias and the negativity bias and all that good stuff. We don't, you know, science is science. But the reality is that in relationships, find someone doing something right, compliment someone, especially in, you know, I think you said you've been married, what, 47 years, Dawn? You know, I've known my wife since 1994. So 30 years now. I've known her that long. And sometimes you forget. Sometimes it's easy to let those relationships kind of, oh, well, she knows. Make that effort, you know, make that compliment, still stay engaged. And whether it's someone I meet today, when I'm out and about after this, I'm going to be running some errands and maybe compliment someone I know. So I think that's it. I think be kind, be heart-centered, and you really help people.
That is so beautiful and so valuable, because so many people are waiting for someone to climb Mount Everest before they get a compliment. You know, and it's the simple things that are really most valuable, right? I mean, I was fortunate. I had the best grandmother in the world, and she taught me how to be polite, but she also acknowledged compliments. And initially I just did it because I knew she wanted to hear it. But every time she went to the beauty shop, I would always say, well, Grandma, your hair looks so great today. And she'd always fluff it with her hands and always like, do you think so? Or I saw a nice pair of earrings or something. And I would always, it was like a treat for her. And then I got into the habit where it was a treat for me to see how much it meant to her. Yeah. Right. So it's like, hey, and the same thing with Ann. There isn't a day I don't wake up and am grateful to see her and thank her for all she does. And she always returns the favor. And you get into that cycle, because every day I do the show, she says, good luck, have fun. And every day I say, thank you so much for your generous support. It's the same words every day. It's almost like we got a routine. But, you know, things you say are things you hear yourself. And then you start that rolling that ball down the hill and seeing it grow and grow with the people that are touched by it. And I know Harvey, I know Kelly, I know Christy, I know all of you. Whenever I'm on their shows and I make a comment, they don't just thank me for the comment, but they go out of way to promote this show, to show appreciation. And those are contagious in a good way. So what are you not only doing directly, but what are you doing that collaterally will have so much value? Because when you leave a happy home with really supportive people, the next person you meet or talk to is going to be the beneficiary. Yeah. Right? And on the other side, you have to temper yourself that, hey, if you went through a tough situation, the next person you meet shouldn't have to have any part of that. Where you say, I shouldn't have talked so loud or been so direct, but I was so caught up in this. And that person's wondering, why am I so unfortunate today? And that's where you got to like limit yourself, cut yourself off, know that, hey, it's getting too hot in here. It's time to walk away. And I think that's another thing that people really can benefit from is not getting engaged. Understanding, hey, I've seen this 100 times. I know if I keep moving in this direction, exactly what the result is. And usually a lot of times, if you do get into a little bit of let's say a challenge with someone, you can just fast forward in your head and say, I know where this is leading. Why not avoid that or cut to the chase, right? So there's no reason talking about something when you can just say, what's going on here? And some people aren't even aware that they're acting out until you bring it to their attention. And I think responsibility and accountability, the other big thing is not being afraid to say you're sorry. Not apologizing. Too many people justify. You point something out and everybody knows it's true, and they say, well, because of this, it's like, no one cares.
Yeah.
Just say, I'm sorry, or I wasn't aware. I appreciate you sharing that with me. Being gracious allows other people to be gracious. I know Jason's been into retail, and that's how I built my businesses. Is I always remember at the counter, there'd always be an irate customer sometime or another, right? And they'd be messing up the whole store if they started raising their voice. And I just understood if I start talking slower and softer, they would start talking slower and softer, right? And if I would engage, it could get out of hand. And at a certain point, it wasn't worth it. And I also understood everybody's going to do what they're going to do. Just deal with it and learn from it. And I think that's so important is you don't always win, but you can always learn. So Jason, what have you evolved from as far as finding yourself in situations and how you can make the best of sometimes things that aren't that good?
I'd like to defer my time. I reserve my time and defer to Kelle because I went last time.
I'm sorry. I get so caught up. Everybody's
Right. I want to hear what Kelle has to say.
So many great things that you both just said. And one of the things that was sticking out is, last year, the word of the year was authenticity, which is kind of interesting because that's AI has really started to take off, which is so inauthentic in so many ways. But I think sometimes people stand behind saying, I'm just being authentic, and think they can get away with saying certain things. I do think, you both made so many great points about how we choose our words and how we act out to others is what we get back. If I go out the door right now and I'm like, this is going to be a crappy day because I'm in a bad mood for whatever reason, my coffee maker didn't work, didn't get my coffee. I'm going to pick up every piece of information that I pass that is negative to prove the belief that I've got going on in my head. If I go out thinking today's going to be amazing, I'm going to pick up every little piece of information that says it's amazing to fulfill that belief that I've said. So all of that being said, I do think it's so you can have really hard conversations with people and make them feel okay about it. You don't have to, terminating someone. That's not a fun thing to do. However, I did tell anyone who I ever had that conversation with, except for one, I was forced to fire someone that I did not agree with, and I disliked that very much. But every one of those meetings, it was like, you earned this meeting. We're not here because of me. We're here because of you. But I had conversation with people, very hard conversation, and even in that situation, and had them hug me afterwards and say, thank you so much for treating me with such respect. Because the other person is someone's child, brother, mother, sister, cousin, whatever. They mean something to someone else. And we forget that sometimes. And people will carry feelings and generally, and this is a lesson I wish I would have learned earlier, is those people who are the ones that are difficult, that are negative all the time and creating stuff, those are generally the most hurt people. And when you have the understanding of that and that mind shift of this person is being this way because they're injured, doesn't make it okay that they're acting that way. But when we have that empathy of understanding, our reaction to it is so much different. And that was a golden ticket moment, Dawn, too, when you said about how to de-escalate a client situation. People always used to say, like, how is Kelle the client whisperer? Like when someone is super ticked off. All people want when they're like that, they want to be heard. And it's like, just listen, don't engage. They usually don't want that. But that is such a masterful takeaway for people is, even if it's in business or personal, to de-escalate any situation is lower your cadence, lower your octave, and keep it smooth. Because if you go at their high rate, it continues that energy of negativity. And you can de-escalate. It's fascinating how quick that works and how much it makes a difference. And my last thing that I'll say that this time around too is, I know for me, if I feel super emotional about something, like for whatever reason, if something hits me and I feel like, ooh, I'm super ticked off right now, or this is making me angry for some reason, I know to say, you know what, I need a minute, like, or I need time to process, because I don't think most other people do either, respond well when we're in a state of heightened emotion. Because we're not thinking clear. We're fogged up, and that's when people say things they don't mean, and then they have to go back and say sorry, or maybe they don't. But it's just having that awareness of yourself. Like, you're only responsible for how you react. Someone else is acting a fool or whatever. That's on them. Like, why bother? And it's interesting because I do look at those things back in my life and think, you are all talking about fighting and winning. Like, people are so into being a right fighter. Well, I'm the one that's right and you're wrong. Well, no, maybe both of you are right in your own position, because you haven't been on my journey. You see things different than I do because we've been on different paths. And I think when we understand that, man, the world needs that lesson. Just because we don't think the same way does not mean that you're wrong and I'm right. We're both right for how we feel and understand, but understanding and being curious about it makes such a difference. And that's an empowering thing for someone.
Well, that is so empowering. I just a couple quick points I picked up from it is, when you take your temperature, how hot you are,
Yes.
or how ready you are. And just like sometimes you got to hit the restart button. There's times when you get up on the wrong side of the bed for whatever reason, and you just think this is not going to go well today, or I'm not in a good position today. And that tends to become self-fulfilling prophecy. But that's the time when you should say, well, I'm going to take another 30 minutes and take a walk right now. I'm going to do a meditation. I'm going to do some breathing. And when my temperature comes down, then I'll launch for the day. Even if it might be a slower start, it'll be a more quality start. The other aspect, the saying is, respond, don't react, right? And how many times have you said, why did I agree to that in the moment, right? And now I'm kind of committed, or I'm stuck, or I got to figure a way out. When you could have said, well, that's interesting, let me think about it tonight and I'll get back to you. Right? And then all of a sudden the cloud disappears. And the other aspect is, it's easier to cut to the chase and say, what are you looking to do right now with this conversation? Where are you looking to take us? And it questions then, or maybe makes people aware of your intentions, right? Because it's not the what. The what is always understood. It's the why. And like Kelle says, you can't unring a bell. And some words coming out of your mouth can never be forgiven. Or if they can be forgiven, they can't be forgotten. And because that is just so terrible and it's so awful, that the trust that takes so long to build can dissipate so easily. You know, it takes a lifetime sometimes to build trust with someone. And it takes a moment to just throw it away. And I think that's where people have to be careful, even though they're aggressive, ambitious. You got to be really steady with your approach. And the other big element is consistency. It doesn't matter who you are, but if that's who you are, stay that way, right? The people who are like a leaf in the wind that go do anything, say anything, are anything, have no value to people because there's no confidence that, hey, you said this yesterday, but now you're telling me something tomorrow. And the other thing is honor your commitments. When you say you're going to do something, or do the best you can at doing something, make the effort. And if you don't succeed, at least you tried and everybody knows you had a good intention. And the other element, and there's so many elements, is be good to yourself first. Self-care, self-preservation, because as you burn out, everybody around you is going to suffer for it. You don't have the choice, you know, and that's the good thing about having a family and having a collaboration group like we have, you know, is that it means something for you to be around. It means something for you to continue to support other people. And when you're selfish, self-centered, you know, you limit your world and you limit the people around you. And plus, if someone doesn't have to worry about you, they can start taking better care of themselves, right? I think that's important. And I think that's the generous part of it. So, Jason, your turn.
So much good stuff. So a little technical real quick, just because it's just part of who I am. Polyvagal theory talks about our autonomic nervous system. And I am of the belief, and as a lot of people, that we're spiritual beings having a human experience. And in our spiritual being, we would like to be at peace and at calm and think that we can just get yelled at and be like, everything's fine and I'm just going to handle this so well. But your human body is reacting. Your nervous system is reacting. So whether it's that customer or that client that's upset and raising their voice and yelling and cussing you or whatever, or to tie it into empowerment, if you're training somebody and they're just not getting it, and you may be getting frustrated because you keep trying to share and they're pushing back, and you go into sympathetic nervous system, which is commonly referred to as the fight or flight. Your body is like, wait a minute, something's wrong. And when you're in that moment, when your nervous system is in sympathetic, you are unable to connect. And I won't go into all the other stuff about it, but you just want to handle it in a way or flee, get out of there. You're not looking to connect. You're not looking to be calm. You're not looking for any of that. So physically, it's hard for you to handle that. So to Kelly's point, before I was trained in polyvagal theory many years ago, just dealing with the situations, I found self-care was after a situation that was like that, kind of out of control, I'd handle it, take care of it, do what I had to do. And then I would go into my office and make it dark and take some breaths and just bring that nervous system back down. So I didn't carry that on to everyone else. So I didn't infect my team with that energy, you know, just allowing myself to settle. And another point that was made, I love the saying, it says, when you're in a disagreement, do you want to be right or do you want peace? That's the question to ask yourself. And there's times to be right. There's times if it's safety and it's someone's doing something they shouldn't be. I mean, there are times, but normally the things we get caught up on, we just get caught up in our own head and we just want to be right. And that doesn't help, you know, to Kelly's point, that doesn't help. So ask yourself, do I want to be right or do I want peace? And hopefully you want peace, because that want to be right is your ego. That's that part of you that's like, I am Jason and I'm right. And I'm going to tell you. And it's like, what good is that doing? And there, like I said, there are times, don't get me wrong, but for the most part, just let it go, you know? And that's empowering when you could do that for yourself. And you're like, I don't have to carry this. I don't have to, you know, like I talk about forgiveness. I don't have to carry this anymore. I can go and take this energy and put it towards me being the best version of me. And I think that's very important.
You make great points there, because the whole element of, being the better person, even though you don't have to, and in most cases most people wouldn't expect you to, but most people who come at you aggressively and you come back with a peaceful response or a polite response will make people think. And the other thing is when people trigger you, there is probably something that about what they just said.
Yeah.
Right? If they tell you today's Tuesday, it doesn't matter how they say it, it doesn't faze you because it's Thursday deep in your heart. But if someone brings something up that all of a sudden freaks you out about yourself, maybe there's an area of work that needs to be done or focus, and then look at yourself and saying, 20 years ago or 10 years ago or even last year, if this would have happened, here's how I typically would have dealt with it. Right? But now, the whole let go, let God, there's certain responsibilities that you shouldn't have to take on. I was listening to, I forget it was Sylvester Stallone or somebody else that said, if you want to really be happy, focus on the future, not the past. Focus on things you can control, not things you can't control, And the other thing I know everybody talks about, or at least I know Kelle and myself have talked about, is count your blessings. Gratitude, having a journal, waking up and being thankful for the most valuable things in your life that are irreplaceable, and going to sleep at night saying, in retail, not to get off subject, an irate customer will stay in the whole staff's mind that day instead of the 99 who came in, did the right thing. And why do you make the exception the thing that takes up most of your attention? So, the sooner you get over it, the sooner you get beyond it. And you can't take the past into the future. It's already been done.
That's right.
And too many people, they go back and they play the same movie expecting a different ending. Yeah. And it never changes. And there's a point where you just say, okay, enough's enough. I accept it, whatever it is. And the last thing I'll bring on before sharing with Kelle is the past does not have to define your future. Who you were, what you did is in the books, good or bad, embarrassed or not. But today is the first day of your life. And in some cases, maybe the last day of your life. And, no one promises anybody tomorrow. And what in the end, and I think if people put that in perspective, if someone said today is your last day on earth, I don't think you'd care about your car. I don't think you'd care about your income. I think most people would say, who do I want to love the most today? Who do I want to thank the most today? And, why not do it every day? It doesn't take that much. And you feel like you've got a mission of goodness, of grace. And that will exemplify yourself because, to Jason's point, so few people give compliments. So few people are in a rush. What'd you say? I forgot what you already said and I'm on the move. Versus, hey, let's take a minute and sit down at the bench, and have a little conversation. And I think that's something important. I think that's what you carry with you. Money can come, it can go. Everything in life, no one owns. Everybody's just renting while they're here. You can't take it with you. And usually those are not the things that when you look back and you look at your life, you never say, well, that bonus I got 32 years ago really means something. But hey, that camping trip I took with the family continues to pay dividends for me, because if you do close your eyes, you can see parents or grandparents or people who were there, and as long as you keep them in your mind, they never die. They live on with you and through you, and I think that's such an important thing. But before I swing it over, got some comments. These are a little bit late in coming. Sounds like your grandmother was really a grand treat. Absolutely. Dennis says, agree in retail, the counter is sometimes counterintuitive. I'm back with agree, we do need time for helpful rhyme. and agree when our temperature comes down, we act much cooler. Harvey comes back with another great show. Have to go now for my Thursday show. Speak to you all soon. If you get a chance, check out Harvey's new show.
Yes.
You won't be disappointed. So Kelle, such a great conversation. So great to have Jason with us, because I think whoever we're with makes us all better for being there.
100%. And I do have to say my coffee mug today goes with this. I don't know if you can see it. Get out of your head and give it to God. Totally how I roll. I don't know anybody who's had forgiveness or let something of their past go and say, God, I wish I would have held on to that for another day. We can't undo our past. Embrace it. It's happened. All of us have made bad decisions, bad choices, and have bad chapters. It's just part of life. But I do want to say, and I know I've talked about this before, during one of the darkest times of my life, one of my therapy lessons practices for me to do was I had a checklist, and the checklist was very simple. Get up, get dressed, and it started out, go out and smile at someone. And because you can't smile at someone and them generally they will smile back, because it's that surprise compliment. You just gave me some positive energy and I'm going to respond to it. As many conversations as I have been beyond blessed to have over this last year and a half, doing all the lives that I've been able to do and all the conversations I've been able to have, I know people who said a stranger smiling at them is the reason that they are living and breathing today, because it gave them in that moment when they were going to take their life that night. They had it planned out and someone smiled, and it gave them enough to think, maybe I do matter. It was just that brief exchange, but it's also what it does for us and as individuals, because what it was doing for me, I was smiling at people, but people were smiling back. So I was getting positive energy. And it does physiologically change how we feel, and it helps us see the world differently. We never know what's going on behind someone's eyes or smile. Even the person at the cash register that is smiling, they may be having an awful time inside and they're covering it up. So going back to being kind, just be kind to one another. It takes no time, and it feeds us such incredible positivity. And then I'll end how I always do, because I can't believe the hour is already up. I always enjoy chatting with you two so much. Is on my note, which will go great on this, or what I generally end on, is go out and shine so bright that others can't help but shine too.
Yeah, and I always love that. No matter how many times you say that, it's so meaningful and important. And it's the little things done right over time that compound and bring you the best returns on your investment. And I do the same thing. I walk every morning, got a wonderful park, probably about 300 yards from me. And I can't wait to greet people, and sometimes they say something back that says, hey, you just started my day off right. I was just looking for that spark, and you provided it for me. And I think there's where the real value is, especially in this day of AI, of social media, that louder, meaner, scarier seems to get all the attention. Because at the end of the day, we're just humans. We haven't evolved as much as other things around us have. And you got to take special time and attention to get back to being human. It's too easy to rush through life. It's too easy to take for granted the people who aren't doing bad things for you. I think that's important, is prioritizing and understanding how much value you have to others, because at the end of the day, it's all about them. And if you make everything about them, you'll be better off for it, because they're not used to it. People value what's rare and scarce. And what used to be common, where everybody's doors were always open when I was growing up, everybody's house was your house if you wanted to walk in it. Today, everybody's got bars on the windows, got guns sitting under the couch. I mean, it's just, they're waiting for an attack. Maybe it'll come, maybe it won't. But how do you live in fear? How do you live scared all the time? And why not go the other direction? So, Jason, your chance to put a wonderful cherry on top of this terrific dessert we created today.
Yeah, I really appreciate you inviting me on here today. It's always a great time. So two things. We talked about strategy and then heart centered. So I want to do both. So I want to talk about strategy. Iron sharpens iron. Surround yourself with people that are going to help you grow. That's how you can help yourself, empower yourself to get better. And it doesn't, you don't have to be selective, like, oh, well, they're not going to help me, so I'm not going to be friends with them, you know? But the reality is that you'll be drawn to them. If you're open to that, you'll be drawn to that. And all of my best friends, I'm so amazed and at how amazing they are. And we have that mutual respect of each other. So surround yourself with folks, like I said, iron sharpens iron. Surround yourself with great people. And the other thing is that from the heart center, we say I am Jason, I am a husband, I am a cat dad, I am that. The question that I always ask people in that sense when they get in those I ams is, but aren't you so much more than that?
Mm-hmm.
And just sit with that. Sometimes when you're getting, oh, this and that, but just realize you're so much more than all of that. And I'll leave it with that.
Yeah, that's so profound and so valuable. And, everything we're talking about isn't hard to do. You've done it in the past in different situations as far as kindness and generosity. Stretch a little bit there. See how much more you can provide some quality thoughts to. You're not there to fix people. You're there to empower people to help themselves, because maybe you gave them a little support. Maybe you gave them a little inspiration, and all you need is that little bit. And you can never lose by being too nice in a genuine way. So don't ever feel like, oh, I overfilled the cup. And I think that's important. So I want to thank everybody, especially Kelle and Jason. Wonderful audience. It is like a family. Won't be here Memorial Day, but want to wish everybody, especially our vets, who have sacrificed so much for so many people and don't always get the consideration and kindness and generosity that they deserve. And with that, I'll be back Tuesday. And let me just share, I got a new person who really I got to meet just by someone who took a poll. And it's with Beverly. Let me see. Anyways, I don't have it here right now for some reason. But next week, I also have Carla on Wednesday coming back with Kelle again, and look forward to having many more opportunities with Jason, Kelle, Harvey, the whole gang. So with that, have a wonderful weekend, and we'll catch up on Tuesday, and be kind.